Just past midnight, inside a dim convenience store. A homeless man, burdened by his past, watched as a massive Hell's Angel pleaded with the cashier for milk he couldn't afford for his child. The biker, judged by every eye in the room, lowered his head in shaman till the man quietly slid his final $8 across the counter. He didn't realize a phone was filming, nor that when hundreds of motorcycles rolled into town, that single small kindness would restore a sense of dignity, he thought, had vanished forever. Before we begin, tell me, what time are you listening right now, and where are you from? Share it below. The fluorescent bulbs hummed overhead, their angry buzz casting sharp shadows across the chipped linoleum of Murphy's corner store. It was 11:47 on a dragging Tuesday night. The automatic doors kept sighing open and shut, ushering in bursts of October wind that made every customer tug their jackets tighter. Marcus Washington stood by the magazine rack, clutching a lukewarm coffee he'd been nursing for nearly an hour. At 55, he carried himself like a shadow, quiet, cautious, never taking more room than he had to. His clothes, though clean, sagged loose on his thin frame, worn soft from too many laundromat cycles. No one looked him in the eye. They never did. But Marcus watched. He always watched. Near the checkout, a giant of a man in a black leather vest raised his voice. Jake Miller had the kind of presence that made cashiers uneasy, and parents instinctively pull their children closer. Across his broad back, a Hell's Angels patch stretched, frayed and weather-beaten from years of open road. His basket held bread, canned soup, milk, and formula not, signs of mischief. But groceries for breakfast. Please, man, try it again, Jake urged the young cashier, Sarah Chen, whose crooked nama tag clung to her green polo. The card reader spat back rejection after rejection, flashing red and beeping like it was accusing him. Sarah's hands trembled as she swiped again. Beep. Declined. I'm sorry. It's still not working. Do you have anything else? Jake's jaw flexed as he dug through his wallet, pulling out crumpled bills and coins. He counted under his breath. 50. 15. Damn. His voice cracked. I'm short. $8. The line behind him grew restless. A nurse in scrubs clutched her purse tighter. An older man muttered about those people, just loud enough for others to hear. From the frozen food aisle came the word that always surfaced first: stealing. The whisper spread like spilled oil. Stealing. Look at him. Call security. Marcus knew that sting. He'd heard those whispers before. Sarah's eyes flicked toward the back office, where her manager tallied receipts. Her finger hovered near the panic button hidden under the counter. Jake's tough exterior cracked. No, please, I'll put something back. The formula, keep the formula. My little girl needs it. That was when Marcus stepped forward. 20. Years earlier, Marcus had owned the most trusted hardware store in 3 counties. Washington Hardware sat proudly on Maple and 5th, a red brick building scented with sawdust and promise. Folks came for nails and tools, but stayed for Marcus's easy laugh and his generosity when times were lean. Pay me when you can, he'd say, and somehow, they always did. He built more than a store, he built loyalty. When Mrs. Foster's porch collapsed, Marcus showed up with lumber and refused payment until she trapped him with an apple pie. When the Henderson boy broke a basement window, Marcus cut the glass cheap and installed it himself. The store was his father's dream, passed down like a family heirloom. Marcus expanded it, added rentals, hired locals, and watched his son pretend to work the register while his wife handled the books. Then came the shipment that ruined everything. A routine delivery from Chicago boxers of high-end drills, saws, sanders. Marcus signed for them, unloaded them. By morning, half were gone. No forced entry, no broken locks. Just vanished. Police filed a report. Insurance asked questions Marcus couldn't answer. Then came the rumors. Inside job. He must have sold them. Probably gambling debts. Gossip hardened into truth in coffee shops and church pews. Customers drifted to Home Depot. The bank froze his credit. Vendors demanded cash. He tried to fight back, hired a lawyer, posted a reward, installed cameras. But you can't defeat whispers with evidence. Within 6 months, Washington hardware was gone. A year later, his wife left for Ohio with their son, whispering through tears, "I still believe you, but I can't watch you disappear." And Marcus did disappear. 3 years on the streets had taught him invisibility. Nights spent on cardboard behind Murphy's. The owner pretended not to notice now.
Oh.
Seeing Jake hunched in shame, Marcus saw his younger self. He reached into his coat and pulled out 8 damp, wrinkled dollar bills, every cent he had from cans he'd scavenged. He placed them on the counter. "I've got it," he said softly. The store froze. Jake stared at the money, then at Marcus. "No, man, I can't." "You can," Marcus replied, voice steady with the weight of years. "Take it." Sarah looked between them, unsure how to process kindness. The line had stopped fidgeting. All eyes were on them. Jake tried pushing the money back. "I'll pay you back. No need." Marcus turned toward the crowd. His chin lifted the way it used to when he gave contractors his word. "You see leather and think trouble. See me and think worthless because I sleep outside. But how many of you would empty your pockets for someone you don't know?" The silence stretched long. "How many of you cross the street when you see me coming? How many times do you push people down just to feel taller?" A woman near the bread looked down at her shoes. The old man stopped muttering. Even the music seemed to hush. Marcus picked up Jake's basket and handed it to Sarah. "Ring him up." The October air cut sharp as the doors wheezed shut. Jake caught up in the lot, clutching the grocery bag like a lifeline. "Why?" His voice rasped, heavy with emotions long buried. "You don't even know me." Marcus stopped beneath a streetlight. His tired face softened. "'Cause someone should have done the same for me." Jake shifted the bag, leather jacket creaking. He wanted to explain, to say he wasn't what people thought, that his patch once meant brotherhood, not fear. But the words felt too small. Instead, he offered names. Jake, Marcus, the 2 men standing in quiet understanding. Both judged by appearances. Jake pulled out a worn business card. "Miller's Auto Repair. It's not much, but if you ever need anything, ... Marcus accepted the card, feeling its weight. "Thank you." Jake climbed onto his battered Harley. The engine coughed before roaring alive. "Marcus," he shouted over the noise. "That thing you said about someone should have done the same for you, what happened?" Marcus tucked the card carefully into his coat pocket, where 8 crumpled dollars had once been. "Long story," he said. "Maybe someday." As Jake's taillights faded into the night, Marcus didn't notice the teenager watching from a parked car nearby, phone pressed up against the glass, thumb tapping, stop, ending the recording of a video that would shift everything. Emma Rodriguez was 17, with more followers on TikTok than students enrolled at her high school. She was sitting in the parking lot, waiting for her mom to finish her overnight shift at the hospital, but she saw the most breathtaking thing she'd ever witnessed. A homeless man offering his final $8 to a biker everyone usually avoided. Her hands trembled as she trimmed the video, laying over simple text. Homeless man spends last $8 on stranger's groceries after being accused of theft. She uploaded it at 12:23 a.m. before going to sleep. By sunrise, it had 10,000 views. By noon, it was trending. By dinner time, it had surged into the millions. Spreading across every platform where rare glimpses of compassion competed with daily doses of anger. The comments raged. Fake. Set up. Bet that homeless guy stole the cash? But for every insult, 10 more voices chimed in with another tone. This made me cry. My faith in humanity is alive again. I knew a man like this once. My dad was Marcus. My brother was Jake, living 3 states away. Inside a clubhouse smelling of oil and brotherhood. Big Mike Morrison froze as the video lit up his phone. Nearly 300 pounds, with arms like trunks, Mike had led the Midwest Hells Angels for 15 years. He'd seen every type of story about bikers, most of them false, written to sell papers or fuel fear. But this was different. This was personal. It showed Jake Miller of the Detroit chapter humiliated in a grocery store while a homeless stranger with nothing gave him everything. Mike called an emergency meeting. Within an hour, 50 men in leather filled the clubhouse, rows of bikes. Outside looked like a steel army. They watched in silence, some shaking their heads, others swiping tears away when no one noticed. "This is about respect," Mike declared once the clip ended. That man Marcus Washington, he stood for Jake when nobody else would. He saw, past the patch to the man underneath, heads nodded. They knew the weight of being judged for their colors and leather, of women clutching purses and strangers crossing streets. Jake told them the man was homeless, sleeping behind a Detroit store, his business stolen years ago by lies and whispers. Mike's voice carried authority. "Brothers, what do we do when someone honors our family?" The room answered as one. "We honor him back." Mike grinned. "Exactly. Marcus Washington deserves more than respect. He deserves the biggest damn thank you we can give." Phones flew out, calls made. Within 6 hours, chapters from Chicago, Indianapolis, Milwaukee, and Cincinnati confirmed what Mike already knew. At dawn, 300 riders would descend on Detroit. Operation Second Chance was born. Marcus woke on his cardboard bed behind Murphy's corner store to the sound of thunder. Except the sky was clear, and thunder didn't beat with rhythm like heartbeats. He rubbed his eyes, listening. Rumble grew from a murmur to a growl, to a force that rattled windows. Standing, brushing cardboard crumbs from his jacket, he recognized it motorcycles. Dozens, then hundreds. At 7 a.m. sharp, the first bike rounded the corner, chrome flashing in morning light. Then another, then 10, then 50. They kept coming until the street became a river of leather and steel, engines thundering together like a mechanical orchestra. People poured out of shops and homes, drawn by the sound. Mothers clutched children, shopkeepers peeked through glass, and in the distance, sirens echoed. But the riders weren't here for trouble, they were here for Marcus. Jake Miller was the first to dismount, grinning wider than his handlebars. "Morning. Brother, hope you don't mind company." Behind him, 300 angels sat astride their machines, patches from dozens of chapters woven into a quilt of loyalty. They had ridden all night from 7 states, pulled together by a single video and one truth. When someone shows love to family, you show love back. Big Mike stepped forward, his presence commanding even here. Marcus Washington. Marcus nodded, still stunned. 300 bikers had rolled into his alley. Felt like a dream, or maybe a mistake. Mike's voice boomed across the lot. "Son, I'm Mike Morrison, and these are my brothers. We saw what you did for Jake, and we've got something to say. What you did in that store standing for a man when the world turned its back, that wasn't just kindness. That was courage. It's family." Marcus's voice shook. "I just paid for groceries." "No, you didn't," Jake said, stepping up with a folded paper. "You paid with your last $8. You stood between me and a mob. You gave me dignity when everyone else wanted to strip it away." He opened the paper, hand-sketched blueprint of a small shop. Simple lines, walls, roof, windows, a wide front door. "We learned what happened to you, Marcus, at your hardware store. The rumors that destroyed you. It's town throwing you aside. We can't return the years, but we can give you this." Marcus stared, realization dawning. It was his store, not exact, but close enough to steal his breath. Jake pointed. "The lot's still empty, still for sale. And as of an hour ago, it's yours again." Mike lifted a notarized deed. 300 signatures. "We all own a piece of your dream now," murmurs rippled through the gathered crowd. Marcus, the homeless man ignored for years, had suddenly become the heart of the town's biggest story. "I can't take this," Marcus whispered. But his voice betrayed hope. "Can't refuse," Jake replied. "It's not charity, it's justice. And we're not giving you a building, we're giving you back your name." By 8 a.m., hammers rang. The bikers worked like clockwork. Some cleared the old lot, others unloaded lumber and tools from trucks that appeared as if from nowhere. Younger riders mixed concrete, while veterans measured and framed. Marcus stood dazed in the middle until Jake handed him a worn tool belt. "You're not watching, brother. You're building with us." For the first time in 3 years, Marcus lifted a hammer with intent. The pace was unreal. Stations poured, walls raised, wires threaded through fresh studs. Shifts rotated, some riders leaving for jobs, others arriving to continue. Leather and chrome flowed like tides. As the sun rose, something shifted. Neighbors who had watched from afar stepped closer. Mrs. Helen Foster, the elderly woman across the street, brought iced tea. "At for the workers," she whispered, avoiding Marcus's gaze. Sarah Chen and her mother carried boxes of sandwiches. Tom said, "It's on the house." By noon, the whole community was drawn in. Children sat curbside, awed by the sight of hundreds of bikes. Teens snapped selfies with angels, who looked nothing like the monsters adults had described, and Marcus worked. Hammer swinging, beams lifted, cuts measured true like his father had taught him decades ago. His hands remembered. His spirit remembered. As the crowd grew, they brought more than snacks. They brought words. Sarah Chen found him during a water break, fingers twisting her work shirt hem. "Mr. Washington."
I wanted to apologize.
For the other night.
For not standing up when people talked about Mr. Miller. For not standing up for you. Marcus set down his bottle and studied Hurt when he too maybe. Working nights for college. Surviving on minimum wage. "You were just doing your job," he said. Softly, nothing to apologize for. Tears edged her voice. "There is. I've seen you behind the store, taking out trash. I never said hello. Never asked if you needed anything. I just walked past like you weren't there." Marcus's throat tightened. How many had walked past him for 3 long years? Well, how often had people looked straight through him as though he didn't exist? "I'm saying hello now," Sarah pressed on, "and I'm asking if there's anything you need." Before Marcus could respond, others joined her. Tom Bradley, the store manager who once threatened to call the police, stood uncomfortably clutching a manila envelope. "This is for you," he said, pushing it forward. "Security deposit. First month's rent covered. Want to sell hardware again? I've got room in my shop. It's a small section, but it's yours if you want it." Dr. James Patterson, who had once bought supplies for his weekend woodworking, stepped closer with wet eyes. "Marcus, I owe you an apology 10 years overdue. I listened to the gossip. I avoided your shop because I thought you weren't honest. I was wrong." Then they came, one after another. Neighbors who had once crossed the street to avoid him. Former customers who abandoned his store over rumors. People who had seen him sleeping behind buildings and walked on as if he were part of the background. Each apology struck Marcus like a blow, not painful, but healing parts of him, he thought, were shattered beyond repair. His faith in second chances stirred again. Last was Mrs. Foster, the 80-year-old woman who had once bought flower seeds from his garden section. She approached slowly, leaning on her walker decorated with tennis balls.
Us?
"Marcus Washington," she said, her voice sharp like autumn wind. "I don't just owe you an apology. I owe you an explanation." Construction noise quieted as she spoke, 200 workers stopping without knowing why. "That night, your tools disappeared. I saw someone in the parking lot, a young man, maybe 20, loading boxes into a truck. I thought it was you working late. Never occurred to me it was theft until the rumors started." Marcus felt the ground tilt. "Mrs. Foster," she continued, "I should have gone to the police, told them what I saw, but I was afraid. Afraid of being wrong. Afraid of getting involved." She reached into her purse, pulling out a faded photograph. "I found this in my late husband's things. You should see it." The photo showed Washington Hardware on its opening day 25 years earlier. Marcus's father stood proudly beside a young Marcus, both smiling wide. Above them, the sign read, "Washington Hardware. Honest work, fair prices, good neighbors." "Your daddy would be proud," Mrs. Foster whispered. And I should have said, "That long ago?" By sunset, the frame of the new Washington Hardware was complete. Smaller than the original, half the size, but sturdy, square, and true. The roof would go on tomorrow, then the siding, then wiring and plumbing, but the real building was already finished. Somewhere between the first apology and the last nail. Marcus Washington had been rebuilt too, as bikers packed their tools for the night. Jake found Marcus sitting on the steps of his new shop, staring at blueprints that had become reality in a single impossible day. "How you feeling, brother?" Jake asked. Marcus looked up at the man whose groceries had started everything. "Like I might be dreaming." "You're not," Jake replied, sitting beside him, his leather vest creaking. "But even if you were, 300 of us are sharing the same dream. That makes it real enough." They sat quietly as the sunset painted the sky. Around them, bikers dismantled workstations and revved engines, ready for long rides to 7 different states. Big Mike Morrison stepped forward, carrying something wrapped in black leather. "Before we head out, one more thing for you." He revealed a Hell's Angels vest, the leather worn soft with age. But instead of the usual patches, it carried new words. Honorary Brotherhood, across the top and below, stitched carefully in white. Family. "You stood for one of ours when the world wanted to break him down," Mike said, offering the vest. "That makes you one of us always." Marcus rose slowly and slid his arms into it. It settled across his shoulders like a promise. For the first time in 3 years, he felt like he belonged. Speech. Someone shouted. Soon, hundreds of voices chanted for one. Marcus had never liked attention, but as he looked at the crowd of leather and chrome, the neighbors gathered, and the frame of his new store rising from ashes, he found his voice. "I don't know what to say to people who give everything to a stranger," he began, his words carrying over the lot. 3 days ago, I was nobody. It's just someone you'd pass without seeing. Today, I'm surrounded by brothers I never knew I had." He gestured to the new store's frame. "This isn't just a building. It's proof that kindness still lives. That brotherhood is real. But sometimes the best thing you can do is stand when everyone else is ready to tear someone down." The crowd held its breath. "I spent $8 on groceries for Jake because someone should have done the same. For me once? What you've given me today, that's someone finally doing the same for me. And I swear, as long as I breathe, I'll do the same for the next person who needs it." A cheer erupted, engines roaring in harmony. As the convoy pulled out, each biker acknowledged Marcus with a wave or nod. The man who had been invisible for 3 years now stood in the center of everything finally seen. 6 months later, Washington Hardware was alive with energy it hadn't felt in a decade. Shelves were stocked, the register rang steadily, and the doorbell chimed all day with customers who came for tools and stayed for conversation. Marcus, wearing his honorary vest over a clean work shirt, helped Mrs. Chen choose screws for her cabinet repair. At the back workbench, he tuned a lawnmower for Dr. Patterson, the same man who had once walked away from him over gossip. The bell rang, and Sarah's nephew Tommy wheeled in a bike with a broken chain. "Mr. Marcus, can you fix it?" he asked. With a child's certainty. "Let's take a look," Marcus replied, smiling as he knelt to adjust the chain.
Oh.
Moments later, the rumble of a familiar engine filled the air. Jake Miller pulled up, making his weekly Saturday stop, sometimes for supplies, sometimes just for coffee and brotherhood. "Fixed," Marcus said, spinning the pedals. "Good as new." Tommy grinned and pedaled away, calling thanks as he went. Outside, teens stepped aside, respectfully, not fearing him, but respecting the man who fixed the bike. Jake walked in, shedding his gloves. "Looks good in here," he said, accepting a coffee Marcus poured without asking. "Feels good too," Marcus answered, leaning on the counter, watching the busy street through clear windows. "It's real because you made it real," Jake reminded him that night. "You had a choice. You could have stayed invisible, but you didn't. You stood between me and a mob with your last $8. Marcus shrugged, the way he always did when someone called him a hero. Just seemed like the right thing to do. But the right thing changed everything for me, for you, for this whole town. Through the window, the ripple effects were visible. Across the street, a once empty lot now held a community garden run by Mrs. Foster. Teens who used to loiter now came to Washington Hardware after school. Trading help for skills and guidance, Sarah Chen had become assistant manager at Murphy's Corner store, learning to see people beyond their struggles. Tom Bradley had adopted a policy of keeping food available for anyone who needed it. Even Dr. Patterson had set up a repair book, lending library at his practice as closing time neared. Marcus did his nightly routine sweeping, counting the register, locking inventory. Everyday chores that now felt like small miracles. Then the door opened one last time. Marcus froze, dustpan in hand. His ex-wife Linda stepped inside. Older, with gray threading her dark hair, but her eyes still warm. "Hello, Marcus," Linda. His voice caught. How did you... "I saw the video," she said. Everyone did. Tommy wanted to see his father's store. Behind her, a 17-year-old boy entered. Tall, lean, with Marcus's eyes and Linda's stubborn chin. He looked around curiously. "Dad," his voice was uncertain but not cold. "Says you built this place back from nothing." Marcus set the dustpan aside, walking slowly toward them. "I had help. A lot of help." "The bikers," Tommy said, his tone carrying admiration. "They came because it was right," Marcus corrected. Gently. "Same reason I helped their friend. Same reason anyone helps anyone." Linda touched the vest on his chest, her fingers brushing the honorary patch. "I never thought I'd see you wearing one of these. Never thought I'd deserve one," Marcus said softly. "Turns out family comes in all kinds of ways." Stood together, trying to bridge the distance between past wounds and possible futures. "We came to see if..." Linda paused, then continued. "Tommy's graduating soon. He wants to study business, maybe learn about running a store." Marcus's heart skipped. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe Ohio isn't where we belong. Maybe home is wherever you are. As long as you're still the man," I fell. In love with the man who gave his last $8 to a stranger because it was right. In the golden light of a store rebuilt on kindness, Marcus realized some stories never end. They only begin again. His had started with 8 crumpled dollars and a choice to stand when silence would have been easier. The rest was just details outside. The sun set over a town that had learned the difference between judging and justice, between fear and compassion. Inside Washington Hardware, a broken family began to mend with truth. One conversation at a time. Sometimes the smallest kindness sparks the greatest change. Sometimes standing for a stranger means standing for yourself. And sometimes $8 is enough to buy back everything you thought was lost forever. The bell above the door chimed as Marcus flipped the sign to closed. But the real store, the one built on respect and second chances, would never close. So long as good people chose to stand for each other, and in a world often short on kindness and courage, that was the most valuable stock Marcus Washington would ever carry.